Right, guys, we're starting out laying down. So remember that you can always just keep a little bend in your knees and your elbows to allow your body to just soften toward the ground. And we want to start out any yoga practice just by grounding and being still and connecting with breath. So that's always a good place to start. So close your eyes down. Let's start to just tune into how you feel. How are you feeling right now? Right now. Notice the really big inhales, filling up your chest, filling up your belly, and the really big exhales, squeezing everything out, squeezing all the air out of your lungs. And keep breathing just like this. You're just lengthening the breath, drawing it out. Seeing if you can make each one bigger and longer than the last. Notice the places that tend to get a little constricted, okay? Humans have a tendency to do everything, we do everything in front, okay? Where all our work is in front of us. And so our shoulders get very close together in the front and they get very stretched apart in the back, okay? We also tend to sit a lot. So our hips get kind of constricted in the front and our muscles get shortened in these patterns. Okay, and that's why we have yoga. So make a little extra space in your chest, scoot your shoulder blades under you. Okay, allow your hips to intentionally soften. And let's try this little breathing pattern just for a few minutes and see how it feels. Try a 3-count inhale. It doesn't necessarily have to be a 3-second inhale, but a 3 slow count. Something like this. Inhale, 1, 2, 3. And let's try a 6-count exhale. Exhale, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And let's see if we can go a few rounds like that. Feel free to adjust it to your needs at the moment as necessary. So while you're breathing like this, I just want to talk to you a little bit about how your breath works. Okay, it's always nice to have a visual, I think, an understanding of what you're doing. And we're not always taught in school how our breath works, right? So you've got your lungs in your rib cage, inflating and deflating. We know that already. Underneath your lungs is a big sheet. It's a bowl-shaped sheet of muscle, your diaphragm. And when you inhale, your diaphragm contracts and it pulls downward towards your hips. Okay, it's very strong. And it sucks the air into your lungs. And so the stronger you contract that diaphragm, the more you pull it down, the more air you pull into your lungs. Okay? Helping your diaphragm out are your accessory breathing muscles on the top of your chest, your shoulders, and they actually lift and spread your rib cage open to make your diaphragm's job easier. So lifting from the top and pulling down from the bottom, your muscles are expanding, your huge lung cavity, all of that is moving open. Okay, as the ribs are opening, the breath is coming in, your diaphragm pushes downward and it compresses everything in your abdominal cavity. All of your organs get compressed. Okay, and that's why we have that big belly that puffs open when we inhale. So I want you to embrace that. Okay, use the Buddha belly to your advantage. Just enjoy it. Feels good. As you exhale, everything moves in reverse. The diaphragm passively relaxes and moves up towards your rib cage. The accessory breathing muscles on the top of your rib cage relax and soften, and your rib cage passively compresses. But then you have the power to take that passive exhalation a step further and make it an active exhalation. And by that, I mean you're using the muscles between your ribs, your intercostals. You're compressing the rib cage actively with those little muscles between your ribs, and you're using your strong belly muscles to compress inward. And as we compress the abdominal cavity, the diaphragm is pushed further up and we squeeze as much air out as we can. So now, while you're breathing, see if you can visualize and feel all of that happening. Okay, notice if your body and your breath have softened up here, if you've relaxed a little bit. And so now is a great time for us to just keep this big breath, this really slow breath, and start to move around a little bit. And we want to warm up gently. Okay. So let's start by moving the hips around gently. You can bring your feet up close by your hips and take your feet wide. Okay. I like to shimmy the feet out away from each other off of your mat. And even if you don't have a mat, you don't need one. But imagine there's a mat and you walked your feet off of them. And I like to call these windshield wipers. So just drop your knees side to side, side to side, side to side. So your hips are moving internally rotating and then externally rotating. So we're getting inner and outer hip a bit more awakened. Okay. You feel it's your low back as well. Your low back's getting wrung out. And as a matter of fact, your pelvis, which is actually some separate parts that are stuck together, your pelvis is getting a bit wrung out. And you might feel adjustments all throughout your lower body here. Pops, cracks, that's okay. I find that this movement pairs well with cactus arms. So feel free to make your arms into two little cactuses and press them against the floor. Okay, feel your chest expanding as you press that upper body down. And so hopefully you notice that in just a few moments, the lower body has awakened and it's more prepared for movement. Okay, we never want to lengthen a muscle when it's very cold. That would be dangerous and not very fun. So next time your knees point up, just pause there and just knock them together. Knock your knees right together. And I like to call this a tent shape. So this is a little tent. And hopefully you feel that your low back is able to kind of release down toward the floor so that it's kind of flush with the floor. And so enjoy that feeling. Neutralizing your low back is such a treat after sitting in a desk for days and weeks and months. So let's start to move the upper body here. So I want you to keep your cactus arm shape so that your chest is kind of big, your shoulders are tucked under you, and your palms are facing up. But hover your arms just 1 millimeter off the ground. So even they're maybe just scraping the floor still. And keeping this hover, palm up, we're going to reach the hands back behind. So reach out long with your arms. Try to keep a long neck. So if your shoulders just mooshed up by your ears, move them away. And then bring your elbows down by your side. So you're making a little tiny cactus. And then arms up overhead. And tiny cactus. So keep breathing. Keep the arms just scraping the floor. So I want you to feel that your shoulders are waking up, your chest, your back is waking up as well. Remember to breathe. I like to inhale on the easy part, and that would be reaching up for me. And exhale on that effort, which is pulling the elbows into this tiny cactus shape. Inhale up, and exhale effort. Keep going. So we haven't even left the floor, and we're already a bit more warmed up than we were before. Maybe 3 more cactus arm movements. 2 more. I feel my shoulders getting warm. Okay, hope you do too. Last one. And then end up with your arms reaching out overhead, and see if you could keep your low back glued to the floor like it is here, but extend your legs. And maybe they don't extend all the way, because sometimes keeping a little bend in your knees helps to keep the low back neutral, like you're trying to put your belly button down on the floor. And so you're here nice and long. Keep your long neck. Inhale here long on the floor, and exhale, pick up your left leg and your right arm. Tap that leg somewhere, anywhere, and inhale. Come back to the floor. Exhale, other side, right leg, left arm, tap, and inhale to come back. So let's do this for a few breaths. Simple movement. And we're just yoking the movement and the breath together. Okay, yoga, fun fact, as a matter of fact, one of the meanings of the word yoga means to yoke. Okay, union. The union of breath and body and mind. There's a lot of union we could talk about, but I think this is a nice example. Just a simple yoking of breath and movement. So some of you are going to want to keep it really gentle here, and you should. Okay, keep it nice and gentle. Keep your arms and legs on the floor. Some of you are a little bit more spicy. You want a little bit more, and you want to wake your core up a little bit more. So to you, I say, float your arms and legs up off the floor, keeping your back down. So a portion of your back will peel up with your head and shoulders, but keep everything else on your back down, from your tailbone up to maybe the end of your shoulder blades. You'll feel your abs waking up and your core engaged. Maybe 3 more times on each side. Two more times. Last one. And as you come back to the floor, let yourself calm down. If you were peeled up, we're going to bring these knees in. Go ahead and give your knees a hug and squeeze them in by your chest. Okay, and as you squeeze the knees in, you can rock your low back and kind of roll it around on the floor. Okay, make sure you go both directions. And then you can tuck your hands behind your knees. Go ahead and rock yourself all the way up. Okay, and we're in a great place to experiment and play around with a boat pose. So you can keep your feet on the ground in boat anytime. Okay, Navasana is what we call it. So think of maybe just starting out really gentle, and then we can kick it up if we want to. So grab behind your knees and make your heart really big and proud and tall. So your tailbone is slightly tucking to point just a little bit at your toes, and your belly button is moving inward towards your spine. So your core is on, it's engaged, and we're going to need some core engagement to do this posture. So keep it. Okay, lean back just enough that you start to feel some challenge in your abdominals and your core. Okay, I like to think of the femurs, so your thigh bones and your spine make just about a 90-degree angle. So just keep something like that in mind. Okay, between your knees, put an imaginary tennis ball. So your knees are slightly engaging inward, but there's a tennis ball of space. Keep that. Notice how that feels. If you want to let go of your legs, go for it. You can reach forward. Keep breathing. So you can stay in this gentle variation of Navasana, okay? Or if you feel pretty good about it, you can reach forward with one of your feet. Okay, notice the extra challenge that's giving you. You can also reach forward with both feet. Wherever you are, breathe. Okay, so keep that tennis ball between your knees. And I'm going to give you a little more core work to play around with here. So keep in mind, you can put your feet down. You can put your hands down as well. Okay. So from your boat pose, from your Navasana, just roll your low back onto the floor. We'll call this a half boat, okay? In yoga talk, we would say Ardha Navasana. Take a big exhale and roll yourself back up to Navasana. So we'll do that a couple more times. Inhale, Ardha Navasana, controlled roll back. Exhale, Navasana, controlled roll up. It's challenging. Inhale, roll it back. Exhale, roll it up. Okay, let's do it 3 more times. Inhale, keep your long spine, and exhale. If it feels like too much, drop your hands and feet, okay? Inhale, and exhale. Now let's hold this one right here and breathe. I want to give you one more thing to play with, okay? We have so many variations of Navasana we could play with, but if you're feeling real spicy here, you can extend, maybe just start with extending one knee. So your toe is pointed up now. And then if that feels good, you can extend both knees. Wherever you are, hold your tennis ball between your knees, lengthen your spine, take one more big breath in. And then let that go. Drop your feet in front of you. Point your knees out to one side. We'll come to hands and knees from here. So I'll meet you there. Okay, so we'll call this a tabletop position. Your hands are under your shoulders and your knees are under your hips, okay? And I like to think of spreading the fingers really, really wide so I can see a lot of color between them. And when you look at your pointer fingers, they're pointed directly forward and they're parallel, okay? And even though you're resting your weight on your arms, you're not allowing your elbows to point out. You're pulling them inward toward each other. Notice when you pull the elbows inward, how does that feel in your chest? Hopefully it makes your chest turn on a little bit. And before we start to move, we need to keep the belly button lifting and strong in toward the spine so your core is engaged. That means you're protecting your low back, okay? So elbows in, belly button up. Coming into a cow posture. On your inhale, you're gripping the mat. You're pulling your heart. So I want you to really pull your hands back towards your knees. So heart moves up and forward. And on your exhale, push the mat all the way, round your spine, drop your head. A cat posture. So let's do a few more cat-cows. Inhale to a cow. And exhale to a cat. So this is one of the movements that we start off with because it helps to really energize and wake up the whole length of your spinal column. So try really paying attention to the movement of your spine here. Maybe close your eyes and think of pointing your tailbone down and letting your spine round like a wave moving up your spine. And then point your tailbone up and allow that wave to move up your spine as it extends. So really fluid here, kind of experimenting with that cascade, that chain reaction. When you point your tailbone in one direction, what happens to the rest of your spine? And this is a relationship that we want to think about, not only in this posture, in this movement, but in any posture. Think about the tuck in your tailbone and how it affects the whole length of your spine. Okay, coming up through a cow posture. So next time you extend your spine, you're arching your back. Okay, your tailbone is pointing up, your belly button is strong into your spine. You're pulling on the mat, so your heart moves forward. Let's take a few breaths here, okay? So notice the strength in your back body. In this cow posture, your back body's driving this movement and feeling your whole front body open up. All right, from your hips all the way up to your shoulders. Big chest. One more big breath in here. And let's flip it to a cat posture. Exhale, push the floor. Tailbone points down now, rounding your spine. Let's take a few breaths here. The front body is now driving this movement, very strong in the front. The back body gets to release. Take some big breath into the back side of your heart. All right, bring that back to a flat back, okay, a tabletop posture. Tuck your toes here, lift your knees and your hips up into a downward facing dog. So we'll make this down dog pretty casual, pretty informal. It's our first one, and we tend to be a little bit cold in the first down dog. So walk your heels out. Okay, downward facing dog is sometimes comfortable for some people. For some people, it's not comfortable. So if you need to, you can really bend your knees, okay? You can also drop to your knees and just take a break. And most of the things we do from down dog, we can also do from hands and knees. Okay. All right, we won't spend a whole lot of time right here, right now, because we're not super warm, and down dog is best experienced with a bit more warmth in the legs. So that being said, let's get the legs a little warmer. So from here, pick your right leg up and out behind you. Okay, take a big breath in. The right leg goes up. Try to keep your hips level with each other as you do that. So your right hip and your left hip are at the same distance from the floor. And as you exhale, pull that right knee underneath you. See if you can scoop your heart up, push the floor away, make some space, and drop the right foot between your hands, okay? Come on up to a crescent lunge. So all the way up with your hands. And here you are up at standing in a nice lunge. So the back heel is off the floor. And I like to think of balancing the back heel, the left in this case, over the left toes. So if you need to come down at any time, you can always drop your left knee and make this a low lunge. So you can always use this modification for a high lunge, okay, crescent lunge. But right here, I want to get the legs a little warm. So make sure we have some nice alignment. The front knee, the right knee is over your right heel, okay? It's never past your toes, okay? The back knee, could we bring that back knee just to hover off the floor, just a little hover, and then pick it up? Let's do it again. Hover the back knee off the floor, and then pick it up. And let's do that a few more times. You can add your arms, okay, swimming your arms up and down. I like to inhale up and exhale down. Now keep moving, keep breathing. Make it a nice movement. And while you're doing this, try to keep your legs really strong. So you're actively pushing down into the floor. Okay, both legs pushing down. And you're trying to move your legs toward each other. So if you could imagine that you were wanting to drag your feet toward each other, they'd be strengthening kind of inward, like some scissors trying to snap back together. Okay, now we're gonna get really warm. So go ahead and hover the back knee off the floor, hold it right there, okay? If you want to, you can join your hands behind you and move them back and get a good stretch for the front of your shoulders. So while we're here, we're gonna take 3 more long, slow breaths. Push the floor actively with both your feet down. Also, try to drag your feet together. 2 more long, slow breaths. Push down, drag together. 1 more long, slow breath in. And we're letting it go. So exhale here, drop your hands around that front foot. Inhale, let's see if we can get the right leg up and out behind. Okay, we call this a 3-leg dog. Exhale here, drop that right foot next to the left. And we'll take a little vinyasa in between, okay? Vinyasa just means you're moving and breathing. And I like to use kind of a little palate cleanser between sides. Okay, and it gets a little more familiar as time goes on. So we'll go nice and slow at first. Inhaling here, move your heart forward, finding a plank posture. Plank just means your shoulders are over your wrists and your belly button is strong. You can also have a plank with your knees on the ground. It's still a plank. Okay, still the same idea. Okay, with your exhale, you can walk to your hands. Bend your knees really generously and just fold. On your inhale, push into your heels, roll yourself up to standing. Remember to keep your legs really strong. Just like in your lunge, you're actively pushing down and you're trying to pull your legs toward each other. Okay, on your exhale, drop your tailbone. You're bending your knees. We're coming into a chair posture, Utkatasana. So keep your big heart facing up and keep that tailbone pointing down. And you can only just go as low as you want to go. Inhale back up to a standing posture, lifting your heart. And exhale, hinge at your hips. You're coming all the way down. So bend your knees. See if you can just hang your head here. At least your fingertips are down, okay? On your inhale, just come halfway up. Think of looking forward. Okay, you can use your knees also. And with your exhale, make a really big fold here. You want to hug your legs. You can still bend the knees really generously if that helps. Okay, keep going with this vinyasa. So inhaling, palms are down on the floor. We're going back to that plank. Now that can be your knees down or not. It's really up to you. Okay. With your exhale, slowly come down. You want your elbows moving into your ribs. On your inhale, grip the mat, kind of like when we did a cow posture. Pull back on your hands. Pull your heart up and forward. Your tailbone is trying to point down, and your heart is trying to move up. On your exhale, come on down. Okay, and I like to use hands and knees as a little easy transition to come up to hands and knees, then all the way up and back to downward facing dog. So here we are. So that was a little vinyasa, and a lot of times you'll find those between sets in different types of classes. They look different, but it's the same idea. It's kind of a palate cleanser. So in your downward facing dog, we're still not super warm. So let's go to the other side. Inhaling here, let's get the left leg up and out behind. Exhaling here, drop that left foot between your hands. Okay, coming up to your lunge. Inhale, all the way up with your hands. So back in your crescent lunge. And we'll take a few breaths right here. So feel free to drop that bottom knee if you need to, okay? Okay, so generally we think of the back heel, this is the right heel in this case, being balanced over your toes. And remember the idea that we want the legs pushing against the earth. So you're actively resisting the ground, okay? And this is going to turn on your lower body in all the right ways. You're also trying to move your legs toward each other. So try to drag those feet together, and that's going to activate your left hamstring, your right quads, okay? So we'll start to hover the back knee off the floor and then pick it up. And then again, hover and pick it up. And you can use your arms. I like to add a little arm movement here. Use your breath. Bring it down and up. Okay, the whole time you're moving, the legs never clock off. They're always on. Pushing down and trying to pull together. Do your best to keep your upper body balanced over your hips, okay? Sometimes it's tempting to lean forward. Okay, not yet. So next time you come down, let's hold here. The left knee, the right knee is hovering just off the mat. Strong legs push down. It is challenging, so if you need a break, drop the knee, okay? If you want to, you can interlace your fingers behind you. Try to do it the opposite way you did last time. Chest big and open in front. 3 more long, slow breaths. Try to pull the legs toward each other, push down. Notice how much warmth we can build just with these really simple movements. So crescent lunge, okay? Anytime the back heel is lifted in a lunge, we call it a crescent lunge. One more big breath here. And let it go. Hands down around the front foot. So it's this time we'll send the left leg up and back to a 3-leg dog. Big breath in, send it up. And exhale, drop the left foot back in a downward facing dog. So let's see if we can move through that same little vinyasa that we did before. And here we go. We'll take it slow again, maybe a teensy bit faster. Inhaling here, find a plank. Remember, you can drop your knees, shoulders over wrists, belly button in. And exhale, walk to your hands and fold, bending your knees if you need. Inhale, roll yourself up, pushing into your feet. Stacking your vertebrae, lift your big heart. And exhale, drop your hips. Think of tailbone down, heart up, knees squeezing together. Inhale here, back up. Exhale here, folding, come all the way down. Hinging at your hips, dropping your head. Just halfway up on your inhale. Some people like fingers on the floor, some people like fingers on the knees. Exhale here, big fold. Think of hugging your legs, hanging your head. Okay, back to the plank. So palms come down. Inhale, step it back to your plank, knees down or not. And exhale, elbows in, lower yourself down, knees down or not. We call this chaturanga. There's different variations, okay, but this one's nice and simple. Inhaling here, pull back on the mat, okay? Pull the heart up, not push. We always pull the heart up. And exhale, coming down, tuck your toes up through hands and knees to a downward facing dog. All right, so we have come back to downward facing dog, and it probably feels different. Hopefully it does. After those lunges, the legs are warmer. So you're noticing hopefully some extra freedom in the backs of your legs. So now let's talk about down dog for a little while. If you need to drop to your hands and knees, go for it. So think of pressing through your hands and pressing back through your feet, like you're pushing the floor away. Okay, and at the same time as you push the floor away, you're strengthening all your arms and legs inward toward a strong central point, somewhere behind your belly button. Okay, your elbows move inward slightly, and your knees have that same imaginary tennis ball kind of feel, so they're pulling in slightly. Okay, speaking of your knees, try lifting your kneecaps, so engaging the front of your thigh, your quadriceps. And as you engage those quadriceps, does that give you a little bit more freedom to drop your heels close to the mat? And by the way, if your heels are far away from the mat, that's okay. They don't have to be down. But think of moving them downward as if you could release them, okay? Maybe one more big breath here in downward facing dog. And as you exhale, drop to your knees, okay? Keep your hips just right over your knees here. So try not to let them move forward or back, and just walk your hands out away from you. Go ahead and drop your forehead. Okay, so here we are in Anahatasana, melting heart pose. And we got your upper body nice and warm, okay, in that downward facing dog, in those planks, and those cobras. So this is a great chance for us to open up some tension that might be in your shoulders, in your chest, in your heart, in your throat, armpits. So if this is quite enough, with just your forehead on the floor, you're feeling a lot of opening in your chest and your shoulders, then just stay here. This is enough. For some folks, it's not enough, and you're going to want a little bit more. So if that's you, try this. Try making tents out of your hands, so tenting your hands, and I'm showing you what that looks like if that doesn't make sense with my words. So you're pressing down in your fingertips and lifting your palms, and then you can start to look at your hands. So putting your chin down and looking forward, and you'll notice immediately that gives you more space to open up in your heart and your throat. It's important that you keep your shoulders away from your ears in this posture. So do that. Keep them away down your back. Okay, see if you can lift your belly button in towards your spine, trying to point your tailbone down here so that this spinal extension goes into your upper back rather than your lower back. If all is going well, you can lift your elbows as well, and you can even try to put your chest and your throat on the ground. It's going to be different for everyone, so don't feel like you have to go somewhere with it. There's nowhere to go. You're just looking for some space in your chest. We'll take maybe 1 or 2 more really long, slow breaths here in this open heart posture. Just using all the heat we created in your upper body to release tension where we tend to lock up the most. Okay, as you are ready, yogis, we're going to walk ourselves back up out of this. So walk your hands back up and in towards your knees. Okay, and then sit your hips to one side. Swing your legs out in front of you. And shake them out. So I just want to get in a nice little low back and hip release before we come all the way down. If you bring your feet close to you and put them right together, like a sandwich, okay, your knees pointing out to the side, you will find yourself in one of the most useful and important yoga postures. Okay, it's called Baddha Konasana, and that means bound angle pose. Okay, Kona is angle. Okay, asana is the word we use for a posture, any standing posture in yoga, and Baddha means bound. Okay, so just a word about this. You can bring your feet farther away from you, or you can bring them closer to you. It's really a personal preference thing. So feel free to adjust that, make it feel really nice. One thing that will happen if you bring your feet closer to you, however, is that it'll create more compression in your knees. So if you have any kind of knee injury or sensitivity, you might just want to err on the side of keeping the feet more far away from you. Okay, more of a square shape. So from your Baddha Konasana, just sit up nice and tall. And you could take your hands and just rest them on your ankles. And find a nice length in your spine. See if you could drop the shoulder blades down the back. And close your eyes. Notice that there's equal weight in both your sitting bones. And if you need to equalize that a little bit, give a little wiggle until both of your hips are equally heavy. And then very subtly, this is not something that we need to rush into, and we're not pulling on our legs for sure. We're just resting our hands on our ankles. With your longest neck and your longest spine, start to move your heart in the direction of your feet. Just in the general direction, okay? Forward. And then stop If you feel your spine start to round, okay, this kind of, I call it a macaroni spine. If you feel a macaroni spine happening, just pause right there. Find inhalations can lengthen your spine even more. And the exhalations can root your hips more firmly into the ground. And this is a posture where it's kind of one of those yoga magic postures where if we just be in the posture and we just breathe and we just give it time, it tends to open up and unfold on its own. Okay. So the more you can let go here, inhale, long spine. Exhale, heavy hips. The more you let go, the more that heart can draw towards your feet. Eventually, you might find your elbows come down onto your shoulders on the floor. And some days, maybe not all the days, and maybe not this lifetime, okay? Some days the head will just rest on your feet, okay? But you don't have to force it. We'll take a few more breaths here. Sometimes if you adjust where your feet are, it makes the posture more comfortable. So feel free to fidget your feet around. Okay, as you're ready, roll yourself back up out of this. Okay, really great release for your low back, for your hips. And we'll just turn this into a little gentle twist. So take your left hand to your right knee and your right fingers behind you on the floor. I like to push down into the fingers behind to make myself taller. So make your spine extra tall. When we're twisting, we always prioritize length in the spine. So that's what we're doing. So look over that right shoulder. And we'll take a few long, slow breaths here. Inhaling for length in your spine, big chest. And exhaling to pull the belly button to the spine, emptying your lungs. We always want to end our yoga practice with a twist, okay? And the purpose of that is to realign and recalibrate your spine. Okay, it's a cooling posture, so cooling you after the heat of your practice. And it's also a great detoxifier for your organs and your whole torso. And let's bring this twist through center. So now the right hand comes to the left knee. Left fingers behind, make you tall. Inhale, long spine. And exhale, twist, strong belly button to spine. Try to keep the shoulder blades down. And let's bring it back around to center. So from here, folks, find your favorite cross-leg posture. Okay, it could be anything that feels comfy. Okay, one really nice posture is, we call it Sukhasana. That means easy pose. And okay, a better name for that might be crisscross applesauce, something we all do when we're kids at school. Okay, so the idea is that your knees and your ankles are kind of close together. And you're able to sit up nice and tall without any kind of strain. And if you do feel some strain, you can always stick a blanket or a sweater under your hips so that your hips are a little higher than they normally would be. Even a couple inches can give you a lot more ease in your easy pose. So let your hands just rest on your knees. Let your shoulder blades drop down your back. Find your longest spine. Tailbone points down at the center of the earth. Belly button pulls back a little bit. Chin tucks a little bit. And here in your Sukhasana, just find your rest. Find that you can let go of controlling your breath. We're backing out of the yoga practice now, okay? Let go of any effort in your body. And when we come to this resting time after the practice, it's a bit profound because we can see the difference between the resting state after yoga. We can compare that to your resting state before your yoga practice. We can just be present with all the sensations we've cultivated. Allow your attention to rest on this moment. And if your mind wanders, just smile and say, I was thinking. And bring your awareness back to this body, this breath, this moment. So our ideal resting time after any yoga practice is about 5 minutes for every 45 minutes that you practice. So about a 5-minute rest would be great, but more is better. And this is where I'll leave you today. Thanks so much for practicing with me.